December 15th. But the sooner is better. Second, your last third paper, so you have to submit it this coming Thursday. Yeah, it is not. You're fine. Okay, so, like I said, there are 5 opportunities to submit your third paper, but only 4 count, right? So if you have received perfect score for the previous 4 third paper, then you don't have to submit it. Right? It doesn't make any change, right? But somehow you haven't submitted one, or if you don't get a perfect score, then this is a good chance to make up that score, right? So it is not necessary, but it may be helpful depending on your previous scores. And then a week from now, we will have final exam, right?
There were 4 chapters, right?
Right, 4 chapters. And one of them is this,
Yes.
chapter 14, altruism and cooperation. So previous chapter is about aggression, so how we fight each other, how we hate each other. But chapter 14 is much more positive, right? How we help each other, how we love each other. Do you remember this incident? Boston bombing? About a year ago, there was a bomb right, near the finish line of Boston Marathon, right? Lots of chaos, really, really negative event, tragic event, but there is any positive thing we can learn from this incident is this.
The stories of the heroes here in Boston yesterday, the men and women who rushed into the chaos to try to help just after those harrowing explosions rocked the finish line of the Boston Marathon. And ABC's Lindsay Davis is back with us this morning with the stories of those who ran to the aid of the wounded. Lindsay?
And Josh, we talked about what a difference it likely made that you already had first responders right on the scene of the marathon. But then there were those there who weren't trained for this, who simply adrenaline kicked in and they stepped in to do what they could to help.
This was the moment when thousands of people, instead of running to the finish line, began running for their lives. And then there were those who ran straight toward the chaos.
That's what Americans do. In times of crisis, we come together and we help one another. Moments like these, terrible as they are, don't show our weakness, they show our strength.
This morning, they are being hailed as heroes. Carlos Arredondo and his wife were in the VIP section, passing out American flags for U.S. soldiers when the bomb exploded right in front of them.
My first instinct was to just run across the street and start helping out the people.
He sprang into action, stopping the bleeding of an injured bystander who lost both his legs. He never left his side, holding his hand till help arrived.
He's a little bit in shock still.
Former New England Patriot Joe Andruzzi, who was there in support of his cancer foundation, is seen here carrying an injured woman to safety. And Army veteran Bruce Mendelson was blocks away from the explosion. Still, he says he was knocked out of his seat, but then headed toward the scene.
I was with my brother who had just finished the marathon, and I yelled at him to get all the people back away from the windows. There were blood smears on the sidewalk. There were people injured with a lot of grievous lower body injuries. I tried to render what medical assistance I could. I tried to help the Boston PD, which was on the scene.
And there were stories of bravery. One witness tweeting this picture, dozens of ambulances lining the streets with the caption, "This is what a hero looks like." Another man tweeting, "My boss's brother was at the Boston Marathon, and he said he carried a 5-year-old who had lost her legs 5 blocks to an ambulance." Pound hero. This morning, we see that for every act of terror, heroes emerge.
It all comes down to that natural instinct, that knee-jerk reaction of fight or flight. These heroes are the people who didn't flee, and even the first responders, they were expecting things like blisters, dehydration, and cramps, not lost limbs and shrapnel wounds. But these people, they rose to the occasion, and they're being celebrated today.
Like I said, it was all instinct. They went right towards it. Thanks very much.
So obviously there are terrorists, right? There are aggressive people who plan and initiate this terrorist attack. But on the other side of human being, we do have empathic concerns, right? Sometimes we help others, right? But they are heroes, according to them, right? Maybe they are exceptional people. So exceptional people are doing exceptional behaviors, nothing to surprise. But how about normal people? Normal people like us. This is what happened right after the Boston bombing. So Google set up this page, so anyone can participate in. So as America continues to recover from yesterday's fatal attack in Boston, it's hard to ignore the impact that technology has had on our everyday lives. So basically, Google set up this page. Anyone who wanted to help, they can contribute. What happened? Lots of people. They're just normal people, just like us. They are willing to provide help, right? Without any tangible rewards, right? Direct benefit from it. They wanted to provide their apartment, food, and everything, right? So at least we can be altruistic, right? So we have potential to be altruistic. So altruism can be defined as a desire to help another person with no benefit to oneself, even at cost to oneself. So it is not just helping. It is a helping without any consideration of direct benefit or even at cost to oneself. But is it really possible for us to help other people at the expense of ourselves, right? That's the question, right? Do you know this guy? His name is Kyle Carpenter, the former U.S. Marine. And then he took the blow of grenade to protect other people. So basically, he covered the grenade to protect other people, right? So he absorbed the explosion. Right? So he lost his eyes and then multiple portion of his body. But he is still alive, and he received highest honor of medal for his behavior. Right? So sometimes people can help another person, even at their cost, right? Clearly illustrated by him, right? But do you think that human beings can be truly altruistic?
Yes.
It's a really great philosophical question about the human nature, right? Helping others. Who think that human beings are truly altruistic? Who think it is not possible? I mean, there is a really big debate. And then the results are mixed. Right? So there is no correct answer here. There is ongoing debate about human nature.
Yeah.
People can help other people, right? That's for sure. Right? That's a proven fact. We can help other people. But the question is, human beings, are we really, really altruistic?
You can have altruistic character.
So we can help, right? Without any direct benefit. But still, people can get something, right? If we focus on intention, it's really tricky. Why? There are social rewards, right? We call them heroes, right? right? He received the highest medal of honor, right? All those people who provide help at the Boston bombing, we recognize them as a hero. And there is some tangible benefits, right? In this case, he appears on the TV screen, and then some benefits, right? And how you can be sure that this person help other people out of altruistic motive, rather than selfish or egoistic reward, right?
Well, I think in his case, he did do it out of altruistic motives because he didn't know he was going to live.
Right.
So he didn't know he was going to be on TV, and he didn't know he was going to receive this stuff.
Right.
Okay.
This is kind of extreme example.
Right.
Right. So his life is at stake.
Right.
Probably at that moment he didn't think about, oh, maybe if I do this, I will be popular, famous, I will receive Medal of Honors. That's not plausible, right?
Right.
So social reward, that's just one thing, but personal distress. Okay. If someone suffers, it is difficult to watch, right? Right? He may experience some personal distress, right? And that's why he helped. Then it may not be truly altruistic. In order to relieve those negative feelings, he may help, right? So technically, it is for his negative feelings, not necessarily for helping others, right?
Because it, I'm sorry.
Right, go ahead.
Because it makes you feel good to help others.
Right, because it make you feel good. So it's because of your feeling, not about others' suffering, right? So if you take into account personal distress, then it is really difficult to decide whether the behavior is truly altruistic or it is out of selfish or egoistic motives, right? Relieving personal distress.
But if we don't have those feelings of guilt, then it makes us psychopaths because we have no empathy for those other people. So it's not just personal distress, but it's also our own feeling of need to help them because it's not just us being selfish to try and relieve our own distress. It's us, I need to help this person because if I was in their situation, I would want somebody to help me. So it's also a selflessness.
Right. So the fact that people sometimes feel negative feelings when they watch others suffer, that may be proof of being altruistic, right? Why people should feel negative emotions, negative feelings when other people are suffering, right? To begin with, right? But if you focus on intention, whether it is for themselves or it is for others, it's really tricky. We can help other people, and there are three different motives. There can be three different motives. One, social rewards. There are some benefits associated with helping others. And there is this, personal distress. It can be said that helping behaviors motivated by these two can be said as egoistic or selfish, right? But there is this possibility. We may have
Empathy.
Empathic. Is it the same word, empathetic and empathic? No? Empathic concern. We do have this, right? we can identify with another person, right? That we can experience on behalf of others, and then we can help, right? So we can understand what other person is experiencing, and that's the reason why we help. Then the behavior is truly altruistic. But any helping behavior may be motivated by social reward. There are some cases when people help because of social rewards. They have a good reputation, sometimes tangible benefits, right? And there are some times when people help because we want to feel good about ourselves, right? But sometimes we can help because we have these empathic concerns. Technically, helping behavior is altruistic when it is motivated by empathic concerns, not by social rewards and personal distress. Like I said, this is a philosophical question about the nature of human beings, right? There are lots of debates, but it is an empirical question as well. You can test, right? Whether people can really help without any social rewards, without any personal distress, right? And some researchers conducted several experiments to test that out. So for example, but it is not easy. Newborn babies, if one baby starts crying, then the others soon follow, right? Is this evidence of empathic concern, empathy? Oh, that baby is suffering, so I'm sad, so I'm crying as well. Or the other baby is crying, it's annoying, so that I cry. Right? So it's always tricky if you focus on intention of helping behavior. Right? So first, human beings can help without any personal distress. So here is one study around that issue. So in this study, there are two participants, but one of them is Confederate, the other is the real participants. So the Confederate need to perform digit recall task. So they were given a series of two-digit numbers and they have to remember. Whenever they made an error, the Confederate will receive the electric shock. Wrong answer, electric shock. Wrong answer, electric shock. Right? Yeah, shock if there was a mistake. And then participants have two different options. First, they can observe other people receiving electric shock. So they have to see. Or they can leave. They don't have to see. They can just leave. Right? And then what they measure is how the participants' willingness to take electric shock on behalf of a Confederate. They have two options. They can leave, or they can take the electric shock on behalf of the Confederate, right? If it is just personal distress, then they have an option to avoid it, right? They can simply leave, right? If they leave, then they are not sure whether the person will receive electric shock, so no personal distress. They just can leave, right? But if human beings have potential to be empathetic, then even when they have an option to leave, they may take some of the electric shocks, right? Because participants may care about the Confederate, right? What they found is that participants who felt empathetic, concerned, they volunteered take more shocks, even when they have an option to leave. Helping is just driven by personal distress, then probably leaving is equally good option. Right? But even with that option to leave, people, especially who felt empathetic concern, they took more electric shocks. So maybe personal distress is not the whole story.
So would you say that the question of altruism is more of, the duration of the effect of the reward, or like what happens? So if someone's altruistic, right, they do something, and then the duration of whatever the effect of what they did, like the length of that determines how altruistic they were.
Altruistic behavior is first helping behavior, right? You need to help. But in order for that helping behavior to be altruistic, it should be driven by empathetic concern, not by other things like social rewards or relieving personal distress.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is like, if you were truly altruistic, would it be that you would keep behaving in the same way over a long period of time, whereas someone who is going for personal rewards would just go for a short time and then stop?
It's just single behavior. Yeah, but single behavior can still be altruistic, right? If you keep being altruistic, it's even better. But here, the question is whether or not human beings are altruistic or can be altruistic, right? So the researchers came up with this study, and then argued that, okay, human beings, they can help other people, right? And it may not be just driven by personal distress, right? But the others, they are saying, oh, wait. But the behavior here is known to experimenters. Experimenters are observing their behavior, right? So it may have some impact on their reputation. Oh, the student, the participant, he didn't help or she didn't help, right? So maybe they help, not because of empathetic concern, but because of concern of their reputation, right? Because it's kind of public situation, right? There are other people's. So it is really difficult to completely rule out other motives than empathetic concerns, right?
Yeah, well, doesn't that play into like when a movie star or a politician or an athlete does something like the soup kitchen or something like that, you can't really say, oh, well, they're doing it because they want to do it, or are they doing it for the good publicity for the team or themselves or their political position.
Right. We can observe their behavior. So we have direct access to their behavior. But we do not have any direct access to their intention. So we have to guess, right? So then this behavior may be driven by empathetic concern, but it may be driven by other things like social rewards, right? So it is not easy, right? How about this then? Anonymous altruism. If the behavior is not public, then people will still help. So one study is this. So basically, there are two conditions. Low social evaluation, the response is anonymous. So it is not public, private response. High social evaluation, the response is public. So other people will learn about their responses, right? And then, again, two people were interacting with each other. One is the confederate, the other is the real participant. And then the confederate is talking about how lonely he is or she is. So how lonely the person is, right? So he's lonely, really sad story. And then what they measure is hours participants would like to spend with this lonely person, Jenny. Right? if really altruistic, they wanted to help Jenny. She's lonely, so they may want to spend more time with her, right? And then there are two other conditions. So in one condition, empathy is induced. What they found is this. So high empathy condition, if they have empathetic concerns, they wanted to spend more time with Jenny, right? If the response is public. But the same effect is observed even when the response is private. It is not going to be known to other people, right? So it may be said that, oh, this difference is free of their concerns about social reputation. The response is private, completely. So it's anonymous, right? Nobody will learn about their decision. But still, we can find effective empathy. Right? So if you have empathetic concerns, then they want to spend more time with them, even in the private condition. But again, the others can say, oh, I mean, they were told that the response is private, but everything was recorded, right? So there is a trust issue, it is not truly private. At some point it may be known, so again, it is really, really difficult to know about their intention, know about their true motives, right? But at least at this point there are some evidence, some suggestive evidence that human beings, we can help other people without any concerns about social reward and any concerns about social reputation or personal distress. But still, they are debating, right? So what do you think? Do we have to focus on intention? If it is really tricky to find out. Like I said, we have access to their behavior, right? Helping behavior, that's easy, right? We can observe, oh, this person is helping that other person, right? But we do not have any direct access to others' motives, right? So it is really difficult to tell whether it is truly altruistic or it is driven by some selfish motives, right? But it may not be that important. It may not be that important, right? Helping others is helping others, right? Regardless of their true motives, right?
I think if it's like a win-win situation, then it doesn't really matter, but then you'll have to wait to see how the situation plays out. Like if it's a win-win initially, then after a while it's a win-lose. Then you want someone to blame. So you go and you find like, why did they help us in the beginning?
Who is the loser in this case then?
So if somebody helps somebody else, but then, so initially it's a win-win, but then they stop helping. And so you wonder why it's like that.
Well, but still, the person who is being helped gain something, right? Initially, at least, temporarily. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's better
But
compared
then
to nothing, right?
If they lose something after a while, then, you know, they wonder why it stopped. So then you go and find the intentions for why it started in the first place.
Right. So, like you said, it may not be perfect, right? But still helping others is good, right? And then if it is really, really tricky to find out whether the person is truly altruistic or not, maybe just helping others, we can appreciate that, right? Regardless of their true motives, right? So helping others without selfish motives is still better than not helping others, in my opinion. But you may disagree. So again, there are some debates, but then the researchers who believes we have this empathetic concerns. So empathy is kind of feeling, right? Emotions, not emotion, but some sort of affective feelings, right? So they wanted to find out, okay, if human being can feel empathetic concerns or empathic concerns, then there should be biological indicator of empathy, right? Happy, that's an emotion we have. And then there is physiological indicator, happy face, certain physiological reaction, right? So if human beings can feel empathy, then there should be some physiological indicator of empathy as well, right? Certain facial expression and certain biological or physiological reaction, right? So some researchers wanted to find out this biomarker of empathy. What they found is this. Eyebrows that were pulled in and upward, things like that, right? You can imagine, right? And certain gaze. And then another feature is heart rate deceleration, right? Slow heart rate. With combination of certain facial expression, that is kind of indicator of empathy. And then who show this kind of sign later, they are more likely to help other people. So then they can argue that, oh, okay, there is biomarker or physiological indicator of empathy. So maybe human being can feel true empathy.
I have a question. Are there, excuse me, people in the society that lack empathy? Like that just are...
Yeah, certainly there are cultural differences. We are going to talk about that later, but short answer is this. In certain society, people have to rely on each other, right? More than others. I mean, without interacting with other people, human beings cannot survive, right?
Because we're social animals.
Right. But certain society, more social interaction. Think about agriculture. They have to collaborate. Especially think about like 100 years ago. There is no machine at all. So people have to work together. They have to rely on each other's labor force. Right? There is no machine. In that kind of society, people are more altruistic. Right? But hunter, you can do it alone, right? Without any dependence on other people, right? So hunter society is less altruistic compared to agriculture society.
Okay.
And then volunteerism. So not dramatic, but people donate. People do good things without direct benefit. So volunteerism can be defined as non-monetary assistance an individual regularly provides to another person or group with no expectation of compensation, right? There are lots of people who volunteer to provide some help. And then you can measure empathy, empathetic concern, or empathic concern, and it is associated with volunteerism, right? But again, it is really altruistic. We don't know. I mean, there are some social rewards, good reputation, and in some case, there is direct benefit as well. So according to research, volunteerism increases longevity. Maybe because it can reduce personal distress. So they can live happy. Right? So personal distress. But again, regardless of true motives, volunteerism may be good, right? So to sum up, we help other people. Sometimes it may be altruistic, sometimes it may not, and then there are some research evidence supporting each position. So it's still ongoing debate. But one thing you can tell is helping behavior, if helping behavior is based on social rewards or personal distress, then it is not altruistic. Altruistic behavior should be driven by empathetic concerns, right? Not by other motives, right? Then, how can we increase helping behaviors? Like I said, helping behavior itself may be good, regardless of their motives. If you accept that assumption, then the next question is how we can increase helping behaviors, right? Regardless of their motives, right? So.
In 1964, 38 New Yorkers watched through their windows as one of their neighbors was brutally murdered. Her name was Kitty Genovese, a 28-year-old woman.
The Genovese incident where a young woman coming home late at night from her work was assaulted by somebody who was one of those random, crazy people.
Kitty was running up the block, and Winston Mobley ran after her until she reached the midpoint of the block and was directly under this street light. Mosley caught up with her and stabbed her 4 times in the back. Her screams were loud, unmistakable, and reverberated throughout the entire area.
The lights went on in the windows around the courtyard, so we know that people were seeing this. Nobody called the police.
Somebody who lived on the 7th floor opened his window and yelled out, "What's going on now?" When Mosley heard somebody yelling out, he ran back to his car. Kitty's still alive. She managed to get up. She staggers around the corner here, still screaming. People in that building heard her as well, and she collapses inside this hallway. There's one apartment above there. It was occupied by Carl Ross. Carl opened his door at the time that Mosley returns, and he saw the second attack taking place. And he did nothing.
After stabbing Kitty another 8 times in this very hallway, the killer ran away, leaving Kitty to bleed to death. Eventually, a neighbor called the police, but it was too late. Kitty died before the ambulance could get her to the hospital.
That shocked the city. Now, it's not that a person got murdered that shocked the city. That happens, sadly. It's that a person got murdered and her neighbors watched and nobody did anything. Bill Ladley and I, we read about the murder, as did everybody else. Here we were 2 young social psychologists starting our research careers. We knew about Stanley Milgram's set of experiments on obedience to authority. And we started to think about, in an offhand way, what could have produced the Genovese effect.
Perhaps Kitty Genovese might have been alive today if a fewer people had seen her.
There were perhaps 38 people that could have responded, but each were looking to see what these other people were doing.
We decided to try to create a relatively ambiguous situation in which we could see how people responded. We thought that one kind of thing that comes up that's often hard to tell whether it's a real emergency or not has to do with fire.
You see smoke coming through the vent, and it is ambiguous. What do you do?
There's smoke coming out from under the door in that room where I was filling out the questionnaire.
Almost everybody does that if they face the smoke alone. Now let's have you face the smoke with 2 strangers. One one person can be seen glancing at the other is continuing to fill out the questionnaire. It's getting a little more smoky in the room, but nonetheless, you stay in the room. By and large, people surrounded by people who react as if there's nothing wrong don't respond. Everybody sees the other people not reacting, so they create a definition of the situation. No emergency.
To test their theories about how groups and individuals respond differently to a crisis, Darley and Motley conducted a second experiment. This time, the emergency was clearly defined.
First of all, I'd like to thank the two of you for being here today to help out in this study.
In this experiment, one student was asked to communicate via intercom with another student down the plane.
If somebody, give me a little help here, because I'm having a problem. I don't want these things coming on.
What sounded like a real seizure in the subject's headphones was just a tape recording of an actor playing a role for the experiment.
If somebody would give me a little help, could somebody help?
If you knew there was nobody else but you to help, you got up, you opened the door of your room, and you headed off to find the person. On the other hand, if there were 3 or 4 other people present who you heard,
We'd like to thank the 3 of you for being here today to help us with this study. We are interested in learning.
you are much less likely to respond yourself.
Somebody, give me a little help here. I have a real problem right now. Help me out.
The responsibility any individual feels for helping is diffused when there are other people who could also help. So what can we say back to the bystanders in the Genovese situation? The first thing we can say, I think, is they got a bum rap. They were reacting the way that you or me might react in those situations. There have been many incidents like the Genovese incident since then, and there have been many incidents in which people who could help don't help.
So we talked about empathic concerns. We have potential for empathy, but how is this possible, right? He and these. So what happened was this: 1964, she was murdered in front of her apartment building. At least 38 people could have called the police, and then eventually saved her life, right? But that didn't happen, right? If human beings can be to have potential for empathy, how is this possible? Maybe analyzing this will allow us to increase helping behavior, right? This kind of a positive helping behavior. So how is this possible? As you saw in this video clip, maybe it's because of audience, right? There are other people, right? If there are other people, 2 things can happen, at least, right? First example, smoke detect experiment, right? So here, situation is ambiguous, right? Right? Maybe danger, may not. It's just not danger. It's just normal smoke, right? So ambiguous situation. And other people are doing nothing. Then you just figure out, oh, maybe this is nothing, right? Nobody is doing anything, right? Maybe it is not dangerous at all, right? So presence of others may influence your interpretation of the situation, right? If it is a real emergency, then probably other people will do something, right? But they are not doing, so maybe it is not that serious, right? But the second experiment, clearly emergency, right? The person, they ask for help, right? Right? There's no ambiguity. Still, other people, the presence of other people, lower the likelihood to help that people. Why? Diffusion of responsibility. Oh, maybe other people will help, right? It doesn't have to be. be me, right? There are other people at all. There are other people as well, right? So two things can happen. Your interpretation, and then second, diffusion of responsibility. Right? There are other people who may help the person, right? So the presence of others may lower helping behaviors because it can attract diffusion of responsibility. And then also your interpretation. That's related to pluralistic ignorance, right? So nobody's doing anything.
Isn't this why when you're being attacked or you see somebody being attacked, you're not supposed to yell help, you're supposed to yell fire? Because that way more people are involved and the damage is a lot more significant than it just being one person getting attacked. It's multiple people are in danger.
Well, I mean, in that case, that's based on your reasoning, right? Right? You certainly recognize that that's some serious event right there, right? Some negative thing going on, right? You figured it out. And then you rationally thought that maybe it's better to not to help, right? Based on your reasoning. But in this case, pluralistic ignorance, you don't think it's a serious matter, right? You don't think it's a serious problem because nobody is acting, right? So first, you do not think that this is a serious problem. So you don't have to provide help. And then even if you think it's really bad, you need help, then this may happen. Diffusion of responsibility, right? There are other people. So it doesn't have to be me, right? So I have something to do, so I'm really busy, so the other person maybe have some extra time to help that person. But the situation you described is slightly different from this one, right? That's kind of rational decision making, right? But regardless of your reasoning, just presence of others will lower the chance to being helped because of this. Does it make sense? There are so many factors that can influence who is going to be helped and who is not going to be helped. Obviously, the presence of others is just one factor. Others are like this, victim characteristic, right? People tend to help someone who is similar to themselves, right? Or people are more likely to help someone they like, as opposed to someone they hate, right? So victim characteristic is certainly important, right? Innocent people is attacked, then people are more likely to help, right? But environmental effect, situation, like the presence of others, also matters. Then the tip, how to get help if you are in an emergency situation. Especially Dallas is a big city, right? So there are a lot of people out there. When you are in trouble, what you have to do is this. First, make your need clear. This will remove any ambiguity of interpretation, right? So clearly say it. Oh, okay, there is some problem here, right? And then select a specific person. This will remove diffusion of responsibility, right? Rather than just help me, just pick one person. You help me, right? That's a lot better strategy. Much better strategy than just helping, right? Because it can remove diffusion of responsibility. So be specific about the event and be specific about the person as well. So that's one thing we can learn from this study. Do you remember this study? We talked about this in chapter 1. So people, when they are really busy, they are less likely to help. But they have lots of time, then they are more likely to help, right? So they have to go one room, they have to move from room A to room B. In their way to room B, they encounter someone who suffered, and the question is whether they are going to help the person or not. Right? In one condition, they were told that, oh, you are late, so you have to run. You should rush to the room B. In that condition, only 10% help, but in another condition where they are told that, oh, you have lots of time, so take your time. Then more than 60% help, right? This has nothing to do with their personality, right? So any people, anyone would be more likely to help when they do have time. So another situational determinants of helping behavior. Right? Obviously, culture matters as well. A certain culture, people more help, more likely to help compared to others. One of the dimensions is this, urban, rural differences, right? So one study shows that people in rural area, they are more likely to correct overpayment, more likely to help injured pedestrian, more likely to help lost child, more likely to tell your name because they can trust other people, they can trust strangers, and they're more likely to donate. Right? Compare people in urban settings, city versus country, this kind of difference. Why? That's the question, right? Why people in rural area are more likely to help or more likely to trust other people compared to people in urban setting? Any guess?
Because of the rural people, there's a lower population.
Right, the presence of others, right? We talked about the presence of others. There are a lot of people in city, but may not be the case in.
Well, in rural areas,
That's
you have to
really-
rely on others a lot more than you do in urban. If you're in urban area, you're in a city, you just walk down the street, go get your stuff, come back home, you do your own lawns, you do your own backyards. But in the country, you have to rely on others. Man, my tractor broke down, can I borrow yours? I need, my cows are sick, can you come over and help me? I mean, that's just stuff that happens that you need help with that you can't do by yourself because it's not a one-person job or occupation.
Right. So more opportunity to interact with others. So I mean, people, it is really difficult to help strangers, right? Everyone will help their friends, except for individuals. But most of the time, people, it's easy to help friends, but it may not be that easy to help strangers. But in rural setting, everyone knows everyone else. So there may be no strangers, right? Right? So more helping in rural area. In urban setting, that may not be the case, right? Everyone is just strangers here. Right? Another, because they are busy, right? Do you remember the experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
City life is really fast. You have to go there, you have to go there, and then lots of traffic jams, so you may be late. So less help, right? City life can be busy, a lot of people, the presence of others, and then opportunity to interact with others, right? So all this contribute to this difference. Right? So it is not like that people in city, living in a city, genuinely worse than people in a rural area. That's not the case, right? Social situation shape our context in a way that we can find this kind of difference, right? Not the people. Then another thing, social class. We talked about the social class, right, in the previous chapter. So working class people, they are more sensitive to other people, right? They are more likely to help compared to middle class people. One evidence is this. So this is just measure of helping behavior, right? Some measure of helping behavior. In one condition, everyone watching compassion-provoking video clips. So after watching these video clips, everyone feels some empathy, right? So compassion-provoking video clips. Another condition, neutral. So no empathy at all, just neutral condition. Working class people, they help more than middle or upper middle class people in neutral condition, right? But once everyone feels some sort of empathy, then no difference, right? So in neutral condition, if nothing, one conclusion you can draw from this research is that maybe working class people, they feel more empathy in general, so that they help even in the neutral condition. But that's not the case among high class or middle class individuals. Right? So again, as I said previously, this may not have to do with their personality, right? Their situation is different, right? Middle class people, they are busy in general. There are lots of things they have to do. And working class people, they have a lot of things to do as well, but they are busy, so they have to do everything in a hurry mode, so no time to help. And then here, what they measured is something like this: how much time they wanted to invest to help other people, right? Time. Middle class people, they have to sign a $1 million contract. So if they help, they may lose $1 million, right? Working class people, that may not be the case, right? So the cost is greater among middle class people compared to working class people, right? So social setting is kind of shaped up in this way. Low class people are more likely to help other people, right? Not necessarily because people with power is genuinely bad or worse, right? That's just social setting. So any of us, as we move up on the social ladder, we may lose our potential to feel empathy, right? So that's something we can keep in mind, right? How about religion? Religious people are more altruistic. What do you think? On average, they donate more money. On average, they participate in more voluntary works. So on average, there are group difference, right? But is there any direct evidence? So helping others. Think about others. Sometimes, if other people are your family, your friends, it's easy to help them, right? But what about strangers? Then religion may play a role in helping strangers. So again, religious concept is primed in one condition, neutral condition. When religion is primed, so the essence of this finding is this: when religious concept is primed, people are more likely to help strangers. When neutral concept is primed, right? So if you believe this kind of finding, religion can make us help strangers. Family members and friends, no problem. Whether religion is primary or not, people will help more, right? But when it comes to strangers, religion can help. According to some researchers, that's why human society developed religion. Promote the collaborations among strangers, right?
I have a question. When religion is part of the equation, don't a lot of people do so-called altruistic things because they believe there is going to be some sort of payoff in the end? So doesn't that mean it's not altruistic? If they believe that they're reaping some sort of reward, like if I do the right thing now, I will achieve this divine whatever.
Right. So God is watching them, right?
Right.
So
or whoever. Doesn't have to be
yeah,
just God.
right.
Yeah,
So
or,
that's why I use helping others rather than religion make us more altruistic.
Okay.
But religion can increase helping behaviors.
Okay.
Right? That may not be truly altruistic, but still, religion can increase helping among strangers.
Okay.
And according to some researchers, that's the reason why humans developed the religion. But there are lots of other views as well. There are a lot of religious teaching about helping strangers, right? Not just Christianity, other religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Taoism, virtually all religions, you can find something about helping strangers. And it is also effective, right? Okay, so helping strangers may be taken care of by religion, but helping genetically related people, that's what evolution perspective can take care of, right? So according to evolutionary perspective, the ultimate cause of behavior is survival and reproducing of our genes, right? So kin selections, we are more likely to help someone who is more genetically related with us. You are going to help your parents more than strangers. People tend to help similar people more than dissimilar people. Why? Chance of sharing the same genes. Think about that. Then there's kin selection, right?
But in this situation, if we are more inclined to help those who we have shared genes with, doesn't that reduce the gene pool and make it even smaller instead of increasing it? Because if we reduce it, we know from science that if we breed with our cousin, we're going to come out with something that looks really funky from some horror movie. But if we breed with somebody who has a completely different gene pool, then we're going to continue on with the species.
But
so,
to think about survival and reproducing of your genes, right?
well, I already have my genes. Why would I need to protect my parents? Because I already have their genes, so they can go out the back door. I need somebody else with different.
Right. So we are not talking about sacrifice here.
I'm not talking about it. I'm just saying.
Helping your parents versus helping strangers.
Yeah.
Which one? Probably helping parents. Why? Because you share your gene with your parents, but not with strangers, right? So for your questions, so if there is an opportunity to choose between your children, your child, versus your parents, people tend to choose children, right? Why? They are old, so they are done with reproduction. Children, they still reproduce your genes, right? So how you can explain that difference? Evolutionary perspective, right? Right? Sometimes, in extreme case, Kyle Carpenter, he kind of sacrificed himself, right? How can you explain it with evolutionary perspective? like you said, you have your genes, right? Why do you have to sacrifice my genes, right? In order to reproduce your genes, right? But if you help other people and then do this kind of heroic behavior, lots of social rewards, your parents may live in a better situation for reproduction.
Not only that, didn't he sacrifice himself to save the guys he trained with? They were like in his troop and all that. So they were, it's almost like they were related, right? Because he was really, really close with those guys.
Right, but may not be genetically related.
Right. But that would be like kind of a reason why he
Right.
did it. It wasn't like he saved some strangers.
Right.
He saved people he knew.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a good account for why Kyle Carpenter helped other people, right? But according to evolutionary perspective, there should be some gene, right?
Right.
So provide help, dramatic help, their family may live in a better situation. I do not necessarily believe that kind of that's their argument, evolutionary perspective, right? And it is not their conscious decision. Unconsciously, we are programmed in a that way, right? Promote survival and reproduction of our genes, right? Reciprocity. So, helping among relatives is easy. Direct benefits of your genes, right? But how about helping strangers? What they come up with is reciprocity. So helping strangers is governed by reciprocity. So people wanting to help someone who helped us. Right? So if I help, then the other person will reciprocate. So that will be eventually beneficial for my gene as well. Right? So just not among human beings, among social members or animal species, helping strangers is based on reciprocity. For example, monkeys, they groom other monkeys who has already groomed them, right? So they share their food with other monkeys who have shared their food with, right? So reciprocity is key concept according to evolutionary perspective. But again, other explanation is possible. Human beings, we have empathy, so we may help others. That's also possible. The final topic we are going to talk about in chapter 14 is cooperation. So I will just explain Prisoner's Dilemma game, and then that's it for today. Right? So how many of you are familiar with Prisoner's Dilemma game? Right? So this is a two-person economic decision game. There are always two players, you and your partner, right? And then you have two options. The other player, your partner, also have two other options. First, cooperate. The other option, defect. Your partner can do the same thing. He can or she can either cooperate or defect, right? And then these are the payoff metrics, right? If you cooperate and your partner cooperate, then both of you will get $5. You cooperate, the other player defect, you will receive nothing, but the other will receive $8, right? You defect, the other player cooperate, you will get $8, the other player receive nothing. And then both of them defect, only $2, right? What's the best decision here?
You'll get some.
Depending on your perspective. Think about group achievement, right? As a group, cooperation will give you $10, right? Right? But think about individual payoff. As an individual, and then as a group, this is the best option, obviously, $10. This is only 8, here 4, another $8. So this is the best strategy as a group, right? But as an individual, what is the expected outcome? If you cooperate, you can get either $5 or nothing, right? So on average, you will receive $2.5, right? Either $5 or nothing. So on average, expected value is $2.5. Is that correct? But if you defect, you will get either $8 or $2, right? Expected value, total is $10, divided by 2, on average, you will get $5, right? So expected value here is $5. Expected value here is $2.5. Then as an individual, which is better option? Defect. Right? But as a group, this is best outcome possible, right? So everyone is just choosing best option. Then worst region. That's why it is called as dilemma. It is not an easy question. It's a dilemma, right? Pursuing your making best decision for you and the worst decisions. And then we are going to talk about this task more in the next class. So Thursday, your last thought paper.
What chapters is those
12, 13, 14. You can write either chapter 12, 13, or 14 for your last thought paper.
I actually have a really good one. Prisoner's Dilemma. Awesome. Because that's actually what happened.